Hello and welcome to the Shadow Archives, a fan-led show dedicated to the Blade of Shadows. I'm your host, Matt from Ohio, and today I'm joined by my co-hosts and my friends from around the world, Tam from Australia, Sam from England, Louise from Denmark, Patrick from North Carolina, and Lisa from Virginia. Now,
Northern Virginia.
Northern Virginia.
There's a big difference.
If you all will recall, last episode we left our story with Lazarus and Salvatore stepping forward to volunteer for the Shadow Trials and their one and only chance at freedom from the Dreadhold. And with that, the archives are officially opened. Before we jump into the story, our very own Sam created a Blade of Shadows playlist, and I don't have Apple Music. I couldn't check it out. So I need Sam to tell us all about it. Like, what's on it? Why did you create it? When do you listen to it? Like, all the things.
Basically, I like listening to music. I listen to it all day, every day. I have quite an eclectic taste in music. I can listen to anything from folk to rock to whichever. So I have a varied playlist on in the background when I'm at work and stuff. And there was just a lot of songs that kept coming up, and I was like, "Oh, I like that one. I'll add it to a playlist. I like that one. I'll add it to a playlist." And then it wasn't until the other day I had to sit down and read that I was like, I need to listen to something so I can actually like focus on what I'm reading, because I have like 1,000 things happening. And as I was reading, felt that a lot of the songs that were coming up in this new playlist matched the tone of where each chapter sort of was. And then so I started trying to listen to it whilst I was listening to a chapter. And yeah, pretty much each song on that playlist has either a chapter or like a section of the book that I think it matches with. I'm going to try and do it on Spotify because I don't use Spotify, but yeah.
Is it like pop music, or is it like instrumental epic background music, or what do we got on there?
There's a variation
Lose
on there.
Control is a good one.
So they have there's a couple of like big music numbers. There's the
I
Run
love
Boy
Lose
Run.
Control.
Yeah, there's Lose Control, Run Boy Run. There is the Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Lord, but that is like super, super dark and super, super instrumental and like big build-ups and stuff. And to me, that song hit at the end of the Cannibalism trial. And if you listen to it as it builds up and everything that's happening, like it hits, and then right at the end when it sort of like crescendos down, it just it's I think it's a really good like way for me to listen and actually the feel the story, not just read it, but actually feel it. So
What if I
Very
told
cool.
you that Sara Samuels has a Blade of Shadows playlist that she listens to exclusively while she's writing?
does she?
I would love to know what that is.
Yes,
That
she
would be
does.
very interesting.
It's very
She tried to share it with me, but it's
nice.
Apple Music.
What's with this Apple
So-
Music? It's so exclusive. That's why I don't dig it.
So
Yeah, there's
I
like
actually
I've got things on there like Codaline and Hosier's. Benson Boone was on there.
I actually have
What'd you get, dude?
What,
a good
Patrick?
He got some awesomeness.
never
That's
know.
what. So, anyways, what I'm saying is Sam, since you have Apple, and I know that Sarah's playlist is on Apple, we might have to get you guys to swap.
I would. I would
I'd be very
100% do that.
curious.
If I can get it on
Oh.
Spotify, because I'll have to go through each song, I'll put it on there and then send it out.
If you
But
ever wanted, like, someone like me or someone to do it as well, I have a bunch of free time.
it was something that just randomly happened organically, but I think it would be quite cool to have a playlist to listen to whilst you're reading the book.
I agree.
One for each book would be insane.
That would be
That
so
would definitely
cool.
be
I
insane.
literally, I've got like,
Oof, look at that.
So, I don't know, did y'all hear that I actually have a copy of it?
I love how extensive it is.
No?
Of Sarah's playlist?
Yes, of Sarah's playlist. She actually sent it to Mandy, my wife, because she has an Apple and I do not. It's a lot of instrumentals, a lot of stuff that I would expect for her to be writing it because it makes sense as she's writing it. And when I mean instrumentals, like from like 300 and Gladiator, and I mean it's actually some really good
Goddamn.
stuff.
Yeah, see, I've got a couple on there as well. Yeah, I've got a couple
All
from
right, we're going to have
Gladiator
to
and
do a
stuff, so-
comparison.
Yeah.
We're 100% going to compare, and we're going to see if Sam's is better than Sarah's. Or we're going to see if
Competition.
Sarah goes, I
There you
need that
go.
on my playlist.
There you go.
Ooh.
Heck yeah. I have
That would be
no
so
idea
cool.
what one would want to listen to with boiling oil and an eyeball. Yee. So, I suppose we should pivot and start talking about the Shadow Lord trials.
Chapter 12 is in Lazarus's point of view, and I just start off the chapter by reading something that I highlighted, which is basically gives you a picture of how it all begins. So, this is Lazarus' point of view. Salvatore and I were bound together like carcasses prepared for ritual, wrists wrenched behind our backs, shoulders stretched to the brink of tearing, chains ringed our throats, thick iron biting into the flesh, and manacles crushed our ankles. So every step became a shuffling prayer for mercy. 98 others marched with us. So the other ones were bound, everybody was bound in pairs. And the deeper they went, the hotter it became. And then another quote that I liked is the ground was not ground at all. It was slick, uneven, a quilt of bones and dried entrails that cracked underfoot. Skulls stared upward through layers of congealed filth, their mouths frozen mid-scream. The stench was overwhelming, rotting flesh, bile, old blood turned to copper dust. So that's what they're basically traveling through to get through this first trial. It was also said that the first trial was always meant to break the weak, and then they said something shifted. It didn't walk out of the darkness, it formed there. So it was kind of a shape, and then it became man-like, but with wrong proportions. And they didn't really know what it was going to be, but trial 1 had begun. So then the man-like thing said, "Listen, you pit-born bastards." The thing said, "The gauntlet of chains hungers in the name of the gods below. You and the sack of flesh tied to you will crawl, heave, or drag yourself through the dark, step by step, breath by poisoned breath. Most of you will die here. Lips peeling back. When you fall, you become the road. They'll crawl over you. Your blood will oil their knees. Your teeth will splinter beneath their hands. So that was the first part of it. This is your first taste, your first gauntlet. You will crawl, you will scream, you will break. And if fortune favors you, the bastard at your side binds your fate. If he stumbles, you go down with him. If he dies, you carry him. You will drag his weight through every chamber that follows until your own skin strips away your like in ribbons. So, then, from above, they hear, "Pour it now." What followed wasn't a pour. It was a judgment. Boiling oil rained from the ceiling in a single roaring sheet, an avalanche of liquid flames. So this is what they're going through.
Back
My
hurts just
skin,
imagining that.
yeah, my skin split open. This is Lazarus's point of view. My skin split open, flesh blistered, bubbled, burst. The smell of roasting meat choked the corridor, thick and acrid, tar, smoking, mingling with burning flesh. We writhed together, tangled in ruin, two bodies, one inferno, our skin fused and tore, melted and sealed again in the same breath. The stench was a lie that coated my tongue, my teeth, my lungs. It was the smell of us burning, dying, unmade. So basically, their skin was like melting and then fusing with the other's skin. So this was happening to all of them, the 98 others, and Salvatore and Lazarus. And Lazarus was saying, "Salvatore, we have to get out." And he was like, "Move, we've got to go, we've got to go." And he was dragging him. Salvatore was not doing as well as Lazarus. Lazarus was kind of carrying him along. Together we forced ourselves upright with the grace of corpses. The chain jerked again, dragging our heads down until our foreheads nearly touched. A cruel closeness, born of survival. We stood. And then Salvatore was saying that he didn't think he could stand much longer. And Lazarus is like, "We've got to keep going." Lazarus is really the one who is carrying them both. We stay standing or we die crawling. There was laughter that followed them along while they crawled along the stones. Okay, then another voice joined the laughter. So who's this? Not a voice, something worse. It was a presence. Guess who it was? Morgraf Severen, the warden, the Shadow Lord himself. And then comes the psychological. That was the physical pain. Now comes the psychological mind, Fuck. Why? And then you start saying to to Lazarus, "Why do you chain yourself to this coward?" And then Lazarus is telling him to get out of his head and trying to keep him out of his head. And he's like, "Oh, you're the noble one. You're playing to savior the lost causes." Lazarus is saying, "Shut your mouth." And Severen is saying, "You defend him even now. Your brother is nothing but a dying animal, and you're the fool dragging his carcass through the fire." And Lazarus just keeps going. You don't know him. He's my brother. And then Severen is messing with his mind. I've seen the truth that lingers beneath that fragile smile. I've heard the thoughts he never let. Lazarus, has he told you what he did before the trials? Whose blood does he carry on his hands? So he's really getting in Lazarus's head and messing with him and trying for him to doubt Salvatore, which he should, but he doesn't. So then he continues with, he envies you, Lazarus, resents you, you burn too brightly, and he has spent his whole life choking on your light. You think he follows you out of loyalty? No, it's hunger. He feeds on what you are, because without you, he is nothing. Still, Lazarus is strong, and he says, you're wrong, you're wrong. Severen says he's already dreaming of the moment you fall, already wondering whether he'll feel guilty as he watches your body break. But hear this, he won't. You'll die for him, and he'll build his throne on your bones. Lazarus is telling him, shut up. And Severen continues this barrage of just trying to make Lazarus doubt him and really just screwing around with his mind so badly. So you can figure he's already been through this physical torture. Now he's, broken down to nothing with this emotional torture. And he's still saying he's my friend, he's my family. And then Severen just, the last thing he's, oh Lazarus, if you knew what he's done and what he will do. So then comes another form of torture. Something lands on his head and it's snakes. So they wrap around his neck and his arm and his chest. They found burns and open wounds and weakness. They slithered into my ears, cool and slick, seeking the soft places and openings, the mind itself. Lazarus is saying, this isn't real, it's just hallucination. But it wasn't. It's really happening. Every scale, every coil, every breath of them, real enough to suffocate. So maybe, he feels that it's real. It might not be real. It might be just but to him it's real. So, and of course, Severn keeps up with the doubting. When will you stop saving what was never worth saving? He'd crawl over your broken body and never look back. You know it. I mean, this is just, when I was reading this, I could just feel poor Lazarus, this just chipping away at him. He stayed strong, Um, and Severin continues on. The snakes return, not crawling from the floor this time, but from him, meaning Salvatore. They slithered from Salvatore's body as if you were giving birth to them. Wet, glistening coils spilling from his mouth, his open wounds. They wrapped around his throat, his arms, his eyes. His body spasmed once. His lips parted. No scream, just a tremor, a shudder, a dying whisper of breath. I froze. You see it, don't you? Severn purred. This is what he hides. So, Severin is whispering in Lazarus's ears, saying, burn him. Let the fire speak the truth. He will never rise as a shadow lord. but you can. So he's trying to pit him against him. Um, so, and all that Lazarus could do was choose one step, one betrayal, one flame. Then something inside me cracked, not with despair, with defiance. So he's still not backing down. He hurled the torch, not at Salvatore, but at them. So the serpents to the snakes, they screamed and their bodies ruptured. So in the end, he stood by Salvatore and Salvatore, and then Severen is like, you choose weakness. And then Lazarus says, I choose humanity. So then they see daylight, and Lazarus said, this way, we're almost there. And he guided Salvatore forward. They stumbled together on their knees and bellies, dragging themselves to the tunnels. And Severen was there in front of them, and all they had to do was pass him. So one step, one heartbeat, freedom. They ran and they tried, and the chains were clattering, and Severen loomed larger, and then they passed through him. So they're like, is this just a vision that we're seeing because we're in so much pain and suffering here? Or was he real the whole time? And Lazarus thinks he'd never been real, that he was an illusion. So there's a question. Do you guys think he was real or he was an illusion? What do you guys think?
I'm gonna go back to my whole thing of the shadows. I do.
Well, I
Because
was going to ask for a shadow watch, Sam.
well, it says there, behind us the shadows screamed, and then there he was, Severen. So in front you had Severen, and behind you had the shadows. So I genuinely think there's a point that I've made in my bit, which I'll get to later, but um the Dreadhold to me is made into a physical character. There's a lot of mentions of it breathing or bringing, some form of human element to a physical place. Um, but I reckon it's the shadows that are making the Dreadhold be this thing. Um, so yeah, I think it's the shadows.
Okay, I love it. I love it. Okay, then it says, congratulations, you have passed the first trial. So all that they went through, even the mind fuck and everything, was the first trial.
It's like the most hellish three-legged race for Fair Day ever.
My gosh, reading it was really like, oh, it was intense.
I
It
have
gave
so
me
much trouble.
anxiety,
Well,
Same.
yeah, yeah.
like
It's
major,
like you're
major
reading like this.
anxiety.
I have so much
Sarah, her writing
trouble
is incredible.
with the like boiling oil because I think there's
Mm,
words in there like their skin slawed off, and
yep.
it's I don't know if that's more horrific or if these snakes are more horrific. But I don't
Being a
like
chef
snakes. I really don't like
and
snakes.
and burning yourself on like hot oil, having like the tiniest little drop of oil burn your hand is
Hmm.
insanely painful. So imagine it going from head to toe. I couldn't think of anything worse. I would rather have had the snakes than
And
the
it
oil.
clings to your skin. It
Yeah,
Oh,
clings.
it's
it's
horrible.
it's it's the most unbearable pain if you get it bad enough. It's insane. Like I've passed out from it before, and I've had like my whole hand burned, and it's just I would take the snakes all day.
You'd
You
have
see,
to
it
imagine that
just
back in the day, they don't really have any soap to get the oil off of your skin either.
No,
mm,
Oh, it's not
Mm.
like hot water, which then just slips away. And this
No
clings to your
mustard to take the heat
skin,
away.
goes into your pores.
you see. Mhm. You see, it just reminds me of a horror movie that I refuse to watch, which is this one about which is this one just because no, because of the peeling skin is what gets me, right? Because there's this horror movie that's about this guy who kind of turns real people into wax figures, and I know there's a scene in it where someone's wax isn't fully set and a bit of their, like, face peels off. That's all that reminds me of, and that's just wax alone, and that's, like, terrifying. Because again, yeah, because again, we're cooking up and we get, like, a tiny little bit of, like, bacon fat on us, and we, like, kinda, like, squirm for a second. That all over your body is, like, ooh, it gives you the heebie-jeebies. It's the best way to say it.
there's one thing that really stood out for me in that chapter was it's not so much about the trial, but it's about something that Severin said to Lazarus about you have the bloodline. Um,
Hmm.
the
That's
strength,
right.
the gift. Why waste it on a dying man who would drown you? Just, uh, why would you waste it on a dying man who would drown you just to breathe? Um, the fact that obviously Lazarus doesn't know anything about his dad, like that's the first point of trying to highlight that his lineage might be a bit more darker.
Mhm.
Severen really likes to
Point
toy with
them.
him about the dad thing. And it's all just going to lead up to the whole Darth Vader moment. I don't think Sarah
Mhm.
likes it when I call it the Darth Vader moment, but
We won't tell. She'll see it though.
Mm. I mean, like, I brought this up for when I talk about the trial that I'm talking about, but it really just shows his power that he has over them, especially because he can, like, speak to them mind to mind. His biggest power play is
Oh, yeah.
manipulation. And he
mhm.
shows that so much, especially like in these like in the little moments. Like obviously we've got the big trial to focus about where oh they're going through blood and sweat, they've got the oil, they're like in pain. But then it's also really the manipulation of like that ties into it that really adds like a level of like fuckiness to it, dare I say. I don't know what other words to say it because
It's a
they're
mind fuck.
also in yeah, no,
Yeah.
it is because especially because 'cause they're in this extreme pain, but then they still have to go through that mental sort of bit as well.
And it's
Speaking of
every
the
time you
mental
think
bit,
that you've just gotten to like the end of one bit, and you're like, okay, so the physical stuff stopped, then the mental stuff starts, then the emotional stuff starts, and
Mhm,
there's no break in the chain for them to breathe, to like gauge on what's real and what's not.
That's
mm,
why they said trial one will break you down to nothing.
Yeah.
They meant it.
mhm.
speaking of the mental stuff, I've I've always been wondering, is Severin playing mind games with all 100 prisoners, or is he legitimately specifically just needling Lazarus and Salvatore?
I think them
He's
because
focusing on them because they're
yeah,
the Shadow Lord. that, You know, they have the potential to be Shadow Lords. He's
and
focused
we
on
saw
them their
even the
whole life.
prologue. The prologue was literally him, like, pretty much picking them as his prey, and so it's kind of like they were destined to be in that situation, so I think he was just finally happy that he finally got them there. Maybe he did, like, a little bit because I mean, yeah, trial of reflection, obviously everyone goes through a similar thing, but especially, like, he constantly toys with them.
I mean, I tend to agree with you all. My only reason I thought of this is because then you go to the next trial, which is the trial of
Mm.
reflection, and clearly, when we'll talk about that when we get to it, because I have logistical issues with that. Um, but like he's doing with all of
Oh,
the remaining prisoners. Anyway, uh, Yeah, so I guess the other prisoners that go through it, the gauntlet isn't quite as rough for them as it is for Lazarus and Salvatore. Can we say that?
Mhm.
I think they're playing them like NCPs. Like, are they just there for the ride, like, to make it feel like it's a thing, but it is just between the two of them? Do you know what I mean? Like, they're not actually there to do anything. They've been put forward for this trial, but
NCPs.
you know what I mean? Like, just the people that walk around against the wall and stuff.
It's for show. It's just all theater. Theater. It's part of the whole mind games.
But some of them has a role to play as well.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Uh,
being kind of friends with the Lazarus, and we'll find out later.
But again, are they just there to do the whole,
Play the part.
what's it called? Bidding to yeah, to make them
Mm.
do what they're supposed to do.
Mm.
Well, I mean, I guess their burns need to be healed. So maybe we should move on and talk about what happens before the second trial.
After the trial, that they get separated and get sent to their healers. And it's where Lazarus discovers that Amara is alive. And yeah. And it basically brings a moment of tenderness and hope that they can comfort each other. And then there's the whole spiel of like, you can't die until I stop breathing. And then Lazarus mentions to Amara that he's joined the shadow trials. And then they get separated again, and after that they get taken back to the cells. And one of the guards is beating up Salvatore or Lazarus.
Salvatore
And
snaps.
then yeah, and then he ends up finding out that Lazarus has hidden the fact that Amara's alive, and they start having a bit of a spat about why the truth wasn't told. And then Salvatore keeps saying that he's adamant that Severen is playing them like puppets and trying to drive a wedge in between them. And then after the argument, they get taken off to do their chores, which is basically trying to make a pile of dead bodies look pretty by taking the old ones down and putting the new ones up, like changing a flower, like flowers out of a vase. And then basically the boys don't speak for the whole time that they're doing their chores whilst they're sorting the bodies out.
Making a pile of bodies look pretty. That is the best simplification I think I've ever heard ever.
Mhm.
I
But I think
agree.
the line is take the bodies and make them look proper.
Yes.
I decided
Mhm.
pretty was better.
Um, for
I
sure.
just had visions of them like taking, the dead flowers out of a vase and putting another set of dead flowers in the vase. Because I did have a couple of questions on where you guys felt on it. At what point do you feel that survival becomes compliancy? Because
Mm.
because uh in my opinion, Salvatore was trying to give up, but Lazarus switched it and was then, instead of a survival point, I think it became a bit more compliant.
I almost want to ask that question during the cannibalism trial.
Yeah, I do feel that it probably would fit better.
But
I
it's
think,
interesting
yeah,
because it's both of them. Yeah. Tam?
I think Lazarus starts kind of realizing he needs to be compliant around then, especially after he talks to Amara. Live, laugh, love Amara always.
We
I'm
know.
an Amara stan till I die. Till I die. Till I die. But I feel like, especially when he talks to her, that's when he kind of realizes how much he needs to, I guess, like, lock in. Because especially since obviously he knows a bit more that she's still on the line in a way,
My
and
my
he has something more to like.
my thing to it was because he was trying to survive the whole time to get to Amara,
Mm.
but now Amara's in there. Does it now become compliancy over survival? Because he's not trying to
Well,
survive to get
100%.
to her because she's already there.
remember when Amara was saying that if he let anybody know that she meant something to him, that they would use it, they would try to get to her to get to him. So he's got to be careful.
Does
Yeah.
anybody else think that that's actually a pretty stupid strategy?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Like, we
then it
read how the
causes a
boys
problem
were
later down the line.
initiated into the Dreadhold, and the first thing that happens is their crimes are read out loud to freaking everybody. And Amara says that she was a prisoner. Like, she's not there working as a healer. She's a prisoner that they let out to heal. So wouldn't she have been initiated, and the first thing that they do is read her crimes out loud?
Exactly.
What are her crimes? Her crimes are being an accomplice to Lazarus's mother's murder.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's
like,
what she
there's the
said.
connection that everybody knows, right?
So I guess there's a women's section in this prison in Dreadhold.
But
It's co-ed.
It's
This
Oh,
is
co-ed,
in the
Patrick.
healer's
It's
clinic.
progressive.
okay. Very progressive.
It's progressive, yeah.
I think maybe she's the only woman there in the clinic, in the healer's clinic. And I think she's part of the mindfuck for,
Well, outside of Severn's den
Lazarus.
of pleasure.
No doubt.
Den of
Well,
pleasure,
right.
yeah.
But those aren't,
So
yeah,
I
exactly.
I was gonna kind of wait till the cannibalism part, but it's really funny how you said that, is it a compliance thing? One of the things when I went into the Marine Corps, my recruiter, because I went in when I was a little bit older, he said, just figure out the game. If you can figure out the game, everything becomes easier. Figure out what your drill instructors, what their rules are, figure
But yeah,
out what makes them tick, figure out what sets them off. If you can figure all that out, then then there's not gonna be a problem with boot camp. And that's what I did. I took it as a game. Let me figure out what the rules are, and then once I figure out the
then it
rules,
becomes a bit of
then
an
I
easy
can
ride.
deal with it. Granted, boot camp was nothing close to this.
That's really interesting, Sam. I was taking your question differently. Like, I guess when you were
No,
talking
it's
about
like
compliancy, you're talking about more like you're playing the game. But when I heard the word compliancy, I started thinking about, instead of fighting for survival, you start doing what they want to survive, which in my mind is a very small difference from what you and Patrick were saying. But like, I guess
it's
it was a
I
difference.
suppose it's both points because it is like fight to survive versus, what Patrick's saying where you play the game. I think for me in this bit and well after this bit to be fair, I think both of them become compliant but in different variations. So one's compliant to do what they're told and the other one finds the rules and plays the game. So it's not the same compliancy, if that makes sense. Or at least for me, that's how it feels. Like one's playing the game to survive and the other one's playing the game to win.
Which one's better? In your opinion, of course, not like objectively.
I think there are pros and cons to both of them. I do think for this purpose though, play to win.
I agree.
I agree. Yeah.
Because I think
Who is playing to win?
I think Salvatore is.
Salvatore.
Yeah,
Okay.
100%.
Just making sure we're all.
Well, there's
Salvatore for
a lot of
the
things.
win!
There's a lot of things later on where he's like, I'm doing this not because I want to survive, but because I'm then gonna take over everything and show everybody who's boss. I had one more
And
question.
he's doing it for Amara.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
I would
it's
pick. I think I would pick playing to survive. If I'm honest with you, I think I really empathize with Lazarus's plight here because I'm very anti-establishmentary. Sorry for anybody who's not. It's like Lazarus is very like fuck the man. I'm getting out of here. He's very Cartman.
Mhm.
He's screw you guys going home, right? And I really I vibe with that. I don't want to become the man. I don't want to become the system
No, I don't
like
think he
Salvatore
wants to
does.
become
I think that's
anything.
exactly what Salvatore wants.
I think
Yeah.
Salvatore wants to become.
Salvatore. I mean,
Yeah.
Lazarus.
I think his agenda is win the game, break the man, as it were. So, take on Severen and then top him and be like, no, I'll be the ultimate. I'll be the top of the pecking order. Because I feel bad for him because I feel like he has spent so much of his life being the bottom of the run that now he's got an opportunity to.
Did you just call Salvatore a bottom?
I did.
You
He
know
would
what,
be.
though? He would have never made it through trial 1 without Lazarus. He
Mhm.
was
So, and
dying.
there's mention of that in like the next bit where obviously, he said the only reason he's actually there is because Lazarus has basically pulled his ass out of the
For
trial
sure.
literally
100%, yeah.
slung on the other side. But I felt bad because obviously he spent so much of his life being at the bottom, and then this is almost like a way of him reinventing himself and being like, well, no, I don't want to be that anymore. I'm going to then be the top of the top of the top and try and get to the highest point he can. I think this is
He's
where.
doing a toxic glow up.
Yeah. It says, I said about the Dreadhold being described basically as a living monster, breathing, groaning, leaning, creating this secondary sort of like character, as it were, like for the physical building.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that it being described as a physical thing is actually shaping them more into who they are becoming rather than like it just being a building like a prison? You know what I mean? Like if it's got thoughts and feelings and it's almost breathing, do you think that it's actually making them who they are becoming, like, becoming stronger, becoming whatever?
I think it definitely shaped them somehow because it's like
Mhm.
an extra enemy.
The sixth man.
Because I feel that I
Mm.
feel like obviously it's making it feel like a presence, and I don't technically know if I feel that Severin is the most dangerous presence, because I feel like the Dreadhole itself is making everybody else worse.
But it's under Severin's control, I think.
But is it?
Maybe.
Conspiracy theories.
My thing about is it under Severin's control is because Severin can use it to appear, not appear. But is it Severin? Like he was saying, was it a hallucination? Is it the Dreadhold creating these things to make them,
Hmm.
bend at its will?
It's
Mm.
interesting. I always read the Dreadhold as being almost an extension of Severen. maybe it's not directly tied to him. Maybe over time it's become a little autonomous, but it's still an extension of his personality and his will, even if it's become autonomous. It's kind of how I've read it.
He's the
Me
warden.
too.
So I
Yeah.
don't. I'm sure they're hallucinating, but I don't think the Dreadhold being animated, as it were, is the hallucination. If that makes sense.
I agree.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think they can
That's a
be
good
mutually.
question, though, Sam.
Yeah. I have one question that when Lazarus and Amara are talking, there's a dude in the room. It's the other patient she
Yeah.
was working on before Lazarus came in. Is just a dying man already halfway gone to the grave. Do we know who this is? Does this person ever come back up later? Is this an important detail? Why did Sarah point it out to us?
I don't remember.
And if
I think
everybody's
I was just saying I don't remember it.
go ahead,
I
Patrick.
think it's just yeah,
Yeah, I think
Or
it's just
whomever.
being
Oh,
a.
go ahead.
That's just how he walked in. That set up the fact that she's there to be a healer. You know, because I don't think he comes back in any other thing.
Right.
Oh,
Yes.
so it's just window dressing.
It's better than her sitting in there alone. I mean, I guess.
Mm.
Well, I guess after Salvatore snaps on his guard, they get taken to the next trial.
Yeah. Woo! I like this trial a lot, actually. It's one of my favorites, personally. I think the last trial is my favorite, I think, if I'm correct in assuming what I think the last trial is. But this is one of my other favorites. Yeah, I wrote a little notes down. This was fun. What is it? Because one of the quotes that is in, I don't know if it's just before this trial or before all the trials, is how they kind of say that they're going to break the body and then break the mind. This is kind of where they really want to try and break the mind. So it's like one thing that I really noticed though throughout this entire thing is like this is kind of a side note for the entire book, I guess. But Lazarus and Salvatore, I don't know how Sarah did it, but they like you can tell that they're different people by their like thoughts as they like in the writing, if that makes sense. Which is something that I just really found kind of quite cool when I was, rereading this over and being like, oh, like you can kind of like even if you couldn't tell me this was like a Salvatore uh chapter, like I'd be able to kind of tell a bit more because of how it is. What is it? I kind of mentioned how stuff kind of shows Severin's power a lot more, how he can like really infiltrate the mind and how it's like his sort of manipulation. I'm trying to think of what some of these quotes mean, these like notes mean. I feel like in this trial, because it's a whole thing of where Severen is sort of bringing up every single bad thing about the people. Something that I personally noticed throughout this entire trial versus Salvatore and Lazarus is they used Severin used Salvatore's actions against him. You know what he did to what was it, his brother's wife, after he thought he had something with her. um and like obviously the what we don't know has happened yet, what he did to, no spoilers, but like kind of being all like, oh, I'm gonna tell. I feel like it's like he's like acting like he's gonna snitch, and I think it's quite funny. But he uses all of the actions against Salvatore, but he switches it up and he uses family against Lazarus. And he uses like, oh, like again, like the whole like, who's your dad? And the whole like, oh, what happened to your mum? And like obviously slightly using like Amara and stuff like that against him. And I think it really distinctly shows these two people's values. These two obviously very separate human beings that are brothers in a sense, but it shows what they kind of care about most. And it's Salvatore owning up for his own actions versus Lazarus being more of like a family person and kind of needing his ground. So it kind of shows where they both stand in that way, which I find really interesting. And I feel like this is one of the couple times before they get very distinct that it starts showing that distinction between them both. I also noticed that Lazarus' section was so much shorter. And I think it's quite, again, interesting because Salvatore then had so much to be used against him versus Lazarus not really that much, because Lazarus is more of a good person, and we find that out obviously a lot more later as well. So I think it shows that Lazarus had a lot more a lot less against him. What was it? And I feel like as well, this is, dare I say, slowly starting to show where Salvatore is going to go. Obviously, we see a lot more of it in the next trial, in the cannibalism trial, but I feel like because this really starts showing all of Salvatore's anger that has been built up. This really is like, because we've kind of seen him obviously in the other trials and stuff like that is a little bit more weak. Lazarus is sort of carrying him. I think part of this trial was to obviously break his mind to the point where he's really going to start continuing this angry streak that we see him have throughout the rest of the book. And so I have a little question I wrote, which is, do we think that Salvatore was always destined to be kind of a bit more of an evil person, a bit more of like a bad guy, seeing where this is at? Do we think it was more situations and the trial that really like made him be the way he's going to become?
You mean like hypothetically, he never goes to prison, he never gets disowned, he stays in the palace. Is he still end up being an evil
Yeah,
dude?
do we think, yeah, because even like, because if he's done all the same actions at the end of the day, let's think about that. But maybe even like if he did all the same actions, like he still killed the people that he killed, things like that. Do we think that he would have still become this evil person without the trials, without Lazarus finding out things? Or do we think
Why?
he would have been just a chill guy with a lot of trauma?
I think that, the whole point is that Severen has been since childhood using the shadows to manipulate people in their lives. And I think from the beginning, Salvatore had a father who was abusive and who made
Mhm.
him into this angry, spiteful, uh, selfish, egotistical person who will crawl over anybody to get what he wants. And I think it was in the cards. That's what shaped him. His whole life has been shaping him, including the
Mm.
trials. But I think it's from the beginning that made him what he is.
I actually agree because I think it goes way back. I think the breaking point is actually Mariana not being there. And I think the power of love is the one thing that could have saved him. And he doesn't have this, not in that kind of way.
And also, I think that if you've had your whole life being brought up with violence, you're going to be violent. You know what I mean? Like it's almost bred into you that is their form of love. Because there is actually a quote in that bit where it says, "You will never be loved without violence. You will never be seen without blood," which I
Mm.
think means that from the second he was born and his mum died, that was it. That was his path. He's always going to be on that path, unless his mother survived. Then he might have had a life with love, because obviously that's what he's trying to look for, sort of like
Mm.
why he he talks to Amara about that he wanted her and all of that stuff. And yeah, I think he's always been destined on that path of misery.
Mm.
I think that if he would become the Lord Lorien, I think he would have been very much like Emperor Nero of
Mm.
ancient
Mm.
Rome. He would have been
Mhm.
very popular with the common people. He would have been extremely unpopular with the military and other ruling families and neighboring allies and crap like that. He would have been very self-indulgent. He would have, which is why the commoners would have loved him, because he would have put on a whole bunch of great shit for them at great detriment to literally everybody else and everything else. And seems like the
Mhm.
kind
Mm.
of dude that would have burned half of Ugarit down so that he could build like a football field for himself or something. Yeah.
Definitely.
Seems like a douche.
I mean, yeah, and then adding on to that, I guess, then is the question then, have we now started to finally, because I mean, I think 100% yes, but we finally started seeing the path that Salvatore, like slowly started seeing the path that he's going to eventually take and like kind of where he's going to go. Because like now we're seeing, you know, he was just beaten nearly to death, didn't get a good healer out of it. Because is there something about the healer being like a half dead man himself or something like that, or like wasn't able to like walk correctly or something like that? It's something like that where it's like he didn't have a good healer. He got beaten to death. Now he's also realizing that Lazarus has gotten so much better than him, and his reflection trial was awful and a lot more worse even than Lazarus's. Where it's like, do we think now that we've finally started slowly seeing the path that he's going to take? I don't think we realize it until skipping like the cannibal trials, which obviously we're going to get to. But I think personally, I think this is where we officially start seeing the path that he's going to eventually take because of all this anger that we're finally really seeing has been bottled up.
Yeah, I think if I could give me a couple cents here,
Yeah.
because I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. You know, his mom was a mistress of shadows, the first mistress of shadows, and I think that it's inherently in him to be evil. But I think because everything was taken from him, it just made it come to the forefront. Because if he was loved, if he was, you know, treated like a mother should treat a mother, would he still be evil? Yes, more than likely. But I think with her dying, if she's dead, or she's stuck in a tomb somewhere, or how did she end up dying in childbirth if she's the mistress of shadows? There's a question that we'll have to wait for. But I think inherently it was there. But with everything being taken, with especially with the stuff when I reread this time, it really kind of hit home with how his father just absolutely hated. It's just like every time I see you, I know that my wife is dead. Every single time, you know, why were you still here? I think a lot of it has to do with it was there. It just without being pushed a little bit, then it wouldn't be as evil or as dark as it could possibly be, or as it is now.
Are you suggesting that this is a little bit like the Joker moment at the end of The Dark Knight? Insanity, as you know, is a lot like gravity. All it takes is a little push.
I think that's what it is. You're right there, and I think it just needed, for lack of a better term, a kick in the ass. So
There is also a mention
I
of the
guess.
shadows as well.
Oh,
About the
Shadow
shadows.
Shadow Watch 2026. Bring it.
There was two. Severen said to Salvatore, I can make you powerful, Salvatore, he whispered. A god in the shadows, kill him and rise. And then just a little bit further down, it said afterwards, my chest tight and my lungs were scraping against my ribs, each breath tearing out in a ragged gasp. I wanted to scream, to swear Lazarus would never, that he couldn't, but then the shadows pulsed once, twice. Sure.
Okay.
Shadow Watcher. Yep.
What else you got, Tam?
Honestly, I think that's it kind of that I wrote down, at least notes wise. I have no clue what I meant by tension before ads. Oh wait, no, yeah. Because now I know. I also thought that I kind of liked their sort of fight, like, not that long ago, because I think that definitely added to what Severen could use against them. And again, he's a little manipulator, so he's like, "Oh, they had a fight? Let me just slide that in there." So it's like, I really like, as much as obviously we all hate Severen as a character, I kind of like him as this villain where it's like he's not fully he's not the worst person we get to deal with in this series, but he's a good one that's been kind of there for now, which I really like. I think he's a really good if you read this book first, for example, in the series, he's definitely a good starter villain in a way.
I think he might be one of the better or more interesting villains in fantasy.
Mm. Mm.
Mm.
See, I see him more as a like a Dark Lord mediator, in a way. Like he's not
Dark Lord
actually,
Mediator.
but he's not actually like a villain as such. He's sort of meeting the two people and identifying the issues that are between them, and sort of highlighting
He's
them
the
and going, "Well,
facilitator.
yeah, well, this is this person, and this is this
Mm.
person, and he's doing this to you, and he's doing this to you," and like it not necessarily trying to reach an agreement, but trying to, I don't know, mediate a little bit. Like
Mm.
I mean,
he's not. I
given
don't think
that,
he's really taking a side, but he's definitely trying to like play each other.
I mean, I think yes, and I think there's a whole history to Severin before Salvatore and Lazarus' story that makes him a villain. I think for this story, you're 1000% correct that he is really just an impetus for Lazarus and Salvatore to become the villains of the Blade of Shadows series. But I think given that Severin has been around for how many hundreds of years already, he created the Dreadhold specifically to have a den of pleasure and a den of pain to feed his shadows. He has one by one entombed all the other shadow lords, including Mariana, who I'm pretty damn sure was his first love, maybe his only love, the thing that might have pushed him over the edge completely. And if we remember, I think it's in Time Hunters, Olivia has a little memory when she's trying to talk about or maybe it's Sweet Venom of Time, where we learn that I think it was Olivia or Isabel talked to Severin to figure out how to do something.
Mm.
So I think Severin's like a player still in the main series proper.
He's a villain. For
Yeah,
sure.
definitely.
But yeah, for Rise of the Shadow Lords in and of itself, yeah, he's just there to mess with Lazarus and Salvatore. What a douche.
Mm.
So after the trial of reflection, Lazarus and Salvatore like essentially sit in their cell in a state of disillusionment and like broken spirits. And they have a little bit of an argument. And eventually a guard comes to collect them for the trial of cannibalism. And I don't think that too much transpires in this little cell setting because it's like 3 pages, maybe. But there are a couple of things that I thought were noteworthy. First of all, if we talk about the guard that comes to get them, he says one thing that I would like to begin incorporating into my own everyday vernacular. He calls them a pair of limp-dicked miracles, and I think that that is one of the best things anybody has ever said. That is hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to steal Sam's thunder. The guard paced before us, his shadow sliding across the wall, which is very interesting.
I have it highlighted.
And so then when we go back to before the guard shows up, I think we're in Lazarus's head right here. He's thinking about like, I don't know what to believe anymore. I don't know what's true. I don't know what's an illusion. Were those really my memories, or had Severen built those memories to break him in the trial of reflection? And then because the guard comes in and his shadow is sliding across the wall, it just makes me think, is the guard even real? Or is he from the shadows?
Mm.
And it made me just read all of this, go, wait, what's real and what is, like, how much of a return on investment is Severen getting if like nothing in this place is real and it's all just a creation of his shadows? Like, talk
Yeah.
about being economic
Yeah.
But
with your labor
it
force.
made me think of what's it called? Has anybody seen WandaVision?
Oh, of course.
Basically she invents an entire world to try and just live in the moment where she's still got her sons and she's still got her husband, and she creates this whole, you know, completely concealed world where nobody knows what's real and what's fake. And I don't know, a part of it, I'm very much in that whole mind frame of, well, if there's a lot of mention of shadows and things just appearing and disappearing and stuff, how much of it is actually real versus like the mind fucking?
Mm.
But I suppose with that, the guard does take them to their next trial.
Yeah. We just talked about this issue with Severen trying to sort out in this time is Lazarus' mind, and he keeps going about father and mother and identity and pushes all the right buttons before they're going into this trial. And then we have all these amazing graphical descriptions as always with Sarah. And Lazarus is like, okay, the first day that's fine, and the second day he tries to sleep it off, but he gets more and more hungry. And he thinks, okay, I've tried this before. I tried it with my mother. Sometimes she went away for days or longer. And then he had Salvatore, who came to feed him. But then we get to day number 3, and this is not very fun. Now the hunger starts to feel like it's a living thing, and it's not fun at all. And then I just have to check my notes. I wrote down something important. Just a sec. Oh yes. We get this insight into Lazarus' mind, and we hear that he sees himself as a human, and Salvatore is more like a monster or something. And I think that's just a big part of the entire chapter. We have this discussion: can we do this and still stay human? So it's very ethical, actually, for me while reading this. And in the end, Salvatore is like, okay, we have to eat. We have to get out of here. So he started eating it. It's not pretty, to say mildly. And of course, Lazarus has to eat as well, because, well, otherwise I don't think he's going to go on to the next trial. Um,
Mm.
and then and they start fighting again as always, because Severen puts all this doubt inside their heads. This is just an ongoing theme, of course. And actually, at some point, Lazarus tells Salvatore, "You can't stand being alone." And this I think it adds up perfectly with what we just discussed with his mother and the way he lived his life. And then we have a lot of flies. I don't like those. So this was an icky moment for me after reading this. And then I think we actually already talked about most of what I had to ask you guys, but I'll just ask anyway, and you can just answer shortly. So, five pages before the chapter ends, it says, "My brother, my rival, my mirror." And I'm like, okay, now things seem good. Then we move a little bit further, and now Lazarus thinks Salvatore is a monster and a murderer. And so I was actually wondering, do you guys, do you think that this switch in what he's thinking about Salvatore, do you think it's because of the cracks in their relationship that Severen has caused? Or do you think there's more to this and maybe it was always somewhere hidden behind something else and they didn't realize it?
I
How
think
they were saying.
Lazarus has always known who Salvatore is, but he loved him despite it because of what Salvatore represented in his life. You know, he was always there for him, stuck up for him. And I think he let the bad things about Salvatore go because of that. But he knew them, you know, he knows who he is.
But I also think I think he also was very shocked to actually find out that the person he thought he was could do something that bad, like murder
Mm.
Eleanor and the guys and stuff. But I think there's been because obviously they had the trial before where they were being told a lot of things that they didn't like about, you know, the fact that Severen was trying to tell Lazarus that Salvatore had shagged his mum and wanted to steal his wanted to steal his
I'm sorry.
girlfriend and marry her. You know, I think if you're putting seeds of doubt in the mind, it's going to form cracks, and the cracks will just get bigger and bigger and bigger.
I'm sorry. I know that your vernacular is like just everyday language, but like as an American, when you hear the word shagged, you just think of Austin Powers, and it's like such a non-serious term. So I don't ever mean to laugh at you, Sam. That's but yeah, I think to your point, I think Lisa's right that Lazarus always knew who Salvatore was in his heart, but I definitely think that's different than understanding the actions that Salvatore was not only capable of doing, but executing in actuality. Because actions always speak louder than words. And up until this point, Salvatore hadn't had any evil actions. And I think the
True.
actions are what break it. So it's almost like Lazarus knows who Salvatore is, but he doesn't have any idea who Salvatore is. If that makes sense.
I
But I
think
also
he
think
always
his
hoped he
view.
was better than he is. What, Sam?
I was going to say I think that his view also changes though, because obviously they're standing across the pit from each other, and you know, he says Salvatore stood motionless, his face was carved from shadow, unreadable, his eyes catching the faintest light. It's it's almost like that at that point then he can see that the person he knew before is completely different from the person who is now sitting in front of him, and then literally not even two seconds later he's then going, well, I'm gonna eat the guy because I'm gonna eat the guy. Yeah. I'm gonna get out of here and do what I need to do. Like you should probably do it too. Like, here, try some. You know, it's a completely gone from the guy who would come run into him after he got his ass whooped um by his dad, you know, it's one parallel to another.
I think I'm going to go on record since Lou kind of brushed over this for good reason. The eyeball scene is one of, if not the most disgusting, viscerally disturbing things I've ever read.
Mhm.
It's that it was like Lord of the Flies.
With a nice
Mm.
Chianti.
With a nice there you go. Yes. Here's my question from this section for you guys. And this is going to be an uncomfortable question. How long would you have to go before you eat?
I think I'd
Luckily,
rather
Yeah.
die.
You mean like the whole person or like the eyeball? Because I think I could go pretty long with the eyeball, but I think I'd probably limp out at eating the person. I would take
I
less
have
time
no
eating
idea how
person than
long.
an eyeball.
Well, with you being a chef, Sam, I mean, I'm pretty sure you could figure it out how to make it taste good.
A little garlic.
But also,
Yeah.
it's a raw person. Think about that at the end of the day.
I know. I don't know if I
Like,
could do that. I would have to die, I think.
Yeah, I think I would
yeah,
starve to
I'm
death.
really a picky eater, guys. I can't do that.
I mean, just think of it as like steak tartare, no?
Ah, okay.
Wasn't that the movie Alive? I think is what it was.
I mean, I'm
No.
Yeah,
I'm a rare steak.
I
Say
said
again?
I think that was a big part. That was a big part of the movie. I
Patrick,
think
what?
Alive. I think is what it was with the soccer team that crashed in the Alps, and they were pushed to
Okay, yeah.
cannibalism because they were
That's right.
for so long.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think at some point in time, if it comes down to survival, it changes a lot. It changes even your own mental aspect as to what is okay and what's not.
Wasn't that
Well,
also,
no.
it was also Yellow Jackets as well, because they were there for like 19 months or something, and they had to start eating people because the plane crashed, but they started pretty quick.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's something you can never, ever, ever, ever come back from. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what I would do.
But at some
But this
point,
is,
I think survival instinct is just way
Mhm.
stronger.
but is it survival? This
Perhaps.
is where I
Mm.
was asking about the compliance
Yep.
thing. Is it a survival thing? Because if you've got Lazarus who's surviving to Lazarus who's doing it to survive, but Salvatore is doing it to win the game.
Oh,
Which is why he's stalking people as he's walking by, each one looking at him.
good point.
Yeah.
Oh man, is
Yeah, I
he
think
some
to Sam's point, there's a very nice inner monologue thought from Lazarus that sums it up. We hadn't survived, we
Yeah.
surrendered.
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
here,
And
here.
I guess with that, we need to talk about the aftermath of the cannibalism trial. That'll bring our reading to a close. After the happy cannibalism trial, essentially we get a crash out from Salvatore. We spend time with them in their cell, and Salvatore is just like can't handle the fact that Lazarus sees him differently and doesn't want to talk to him anymore. Even
Too
going
bad,
so
so
far as
sad.
to there's like they go through like a couple of days of chores and whatever of Lazarus not talking to him anymore. Um,
I
I think
love Lazarus, though.
Salvatore
Um,
tries
Lazarus.
to make a joke about it, like when they're given their chores initially. He's like, "Hey, I wonder what kind of hell they'll feed us today." And it's like, dude, read the
Yeah.
room. Too soon.
Right?
Too soon. And he keeps trying to get Lazarus to come back to him with jokes and just small talk. But Lazarus is just having nothing with this dude because he ate a person, and more to the point, he loved it. And
Mhm.
that's why Lazarus can't handle this, but Salvatore is all in on it. He's like, I'm strong. I'm amazing. I did what we had to do to survive.
Uh,
I guess it's worth mentioning that the chores that they're given to like end everything is essentially cleaning up the dead dudes in the cannibalism pit. And you get to see how all of the
Mm.
corpses that they were eating are all like bloated and green and disgusting.
Mm.
And then I think we get a whole bunch of Severen kind of coming in with more mind games while they're down in the pit cleaning up the aftermath. So that's sort of what
Sarah,
happens afterwards. And it's just like I think Sam brought this up earlier, and I asked the question who was right. But like now we're getting it from Salvatore's point of view. So I guess my overarching question at the end is what team are we on at this point? Are you guys team Salvatore? You guys team Lazarus?
I'm
Oh,
always
wait.
on Lazarus' side.
I think I did forget. Wait, when did is this also the chapter that Salvatore gets healed by Amara
Yes.
and tries to like pass a move on her? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
It
I
is.
almost forgot about that.
When I read this the first time, I was actually kind of Team Salvatore, but that was because I was still hoping for him, for someone to save him.
Mhm.
He's dead to me.
I still
I'm
love
going to
him.
very pointedly point at Tam. What are
Mhm.
your thoughts and feelings with Salvatore trying to get some against Amara's will?
He's trying to rid, man. What is it? I just find it like you can tell at the end of the day, a big thing about Salvatore is that he always wanted what Lazarus had. I think that's a big thing because Lazarus had a good relationship with his mom. He had that sort of family connection. He had the girl that Salvatore wanted at one point. He constantly, like, he got even like a praise during the war a fair bit, things like that. Like, he always got what Salvatore didn't get as much of, whether that
Because
was
he was a
family,
good
whether that was love.
guy.
No, exactly, and he deserves it. We'll live by the fact that he deserves good karma exists, especially in this book and especially in this series. So
Oh, yeah.
at least let's hope. Let's hope with the next book coming out. Let's hope. Um, but let's pray. But it's like, so I think it really just shows Salvatore's roots. And obvious, like I was always fitty about him, I guess, like on and off, being like, oh, like hoping for a redemption arc. But at this point, during the cannibalism and then the aftermath with like Amara, I think this is where I lost all my respect for him because it really just showed who he's become at the end of the day. And like we don't even know about the other stuff yet. We still technically don't know that. But it's really just showing the type of person that he's going to become. And so that's kind of where I lost all faith because I was like, oh, there's no turning back after this, especially like when like Lazarus gonna go off his head sort of thing. Like
Yeah.
it's really just like he's just constantly going down now. He's going downhill. He's becoming more savage. He's like manifesting his anger outwards instead of keeping it inwards now. So, and like we know what happens when he keeps his anger bottled up. Fucking his brother's wife and everything. He released some of that anger and then 3 people died sort of thing.
I will say
It's
though, I do feel
Mhm.
bad for him in this bit
Oh, 100%,
because
yeah.
obviously, like everything's just happened, and like I said, he's playing the game to jump the hierarchy. but he's still being knocked down because he's got the guards or is it the guards or the prisoners? And they're talking about, oh, I heard
Oh,
this
yeah.
about him. I heard this about him, saying that they said she took 2 men at once, had to have had both to fill the hole because obviously they're then trying to say that he's tiny and can't do anything and, saying that, I've heard he's done this and, I feel for him because if you're constantly getting beat down and your self-esteem has got to be in the pit that
Mm.
that
No
you've
pun.
got to try and that you've got to try and do something to prove them wrong or make them see the person that you think you see, you know what I mean?
I feel sorry for people who go through abuse when they're little and everything when he was a boy. But there are a lot of people who have gone through bad stuff and they can still grow up to be decent human beings. So to me, fuck off.
I can definitely empathize with Salvatore getting made fun of and all of that. However, I don't believe that the good way to show people that you're worth it is by eating people or graping them. So
No, no,
Yeah.
no, no. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's other, use your words.
also it's just a keep your hands off of my Meemaw type of situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I definitely don't think that there's any.
But
Go ahead, Luke.
you go
all I
ahead.
was gonna say was unlike
Oh, it's okay. I wait.
Balthazar, where you always have this kind of going back and forth. Is he good? Is he bad? Is he good? Is he bad? So far, Salvatore's been bad throughout the entire series. For those that have read every series.
Exactly.
So this just points it out like, oh, he was bad from the get-go as this is the origin story. Okay. Yeah, there's no hope for him. He's down there and he's not coming back up.
He's unredeemable.
I guess it's a decent segue to simply then say that our story comes to a close this week with Lazarus bursting through the door and defending the shit out of his woman's honor by beating Salvatore to a pulp.
Yeah.
That's my woman.
So, in our next episode, we will be examining the 4th and 5th trials and all the shenanigans leading up to the final trial as we go through chapters 16 through 19 of Rise of the Shadow Lords.
Yay.
But for now, the archives are closed. Thank you for listening, and we will all see you next week.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.